Hello and welcome to Jay Lethal's Food Vlog, episode number 1. I'm your host, Jay Lethal. And whether you got here from my blog or just surfing the internet, welcome. I think you'll find some really good information coming out of this channel. If you don't follow my blog, I recommend that you do. I'll include a link at the end of this video so that you can check it out and subscribe to that. I want to keep this channel mainly as a means of education and learning and teaching you guys and girls. And the blog is more of a recreational thing where I talk about the food that I eat and places that I go and experiences that I have. So two different things. I'm going to keep them kind of separated. And I think it's worth stating that since I've never done anything like this before, there'll probably be some changes here and there as I kind of work some kinks out, both in the filming process and editing and things like that, because I don't really have any fancy software or equipment or anything like that. But so enough disclaimer. Let's get that out of the way. I want to go ahead and start getting into the content of this video. We're going to cover 3 things today. The first of which is how to hold your knife properly. I think a lot of people have different ideas on how to do it. Some of them right, some of them wrong. So I'll touch on that, and then we're going to get into 2 cuts. Today we're going to do that on an onion. We're going to do a julienne and a dice because I think they're really versatile cuts. They're used a lot, and they're really good to know and very basic, so that you can start it on an onion and then kind of use that knowledge and kind of apply that to other vegetables and fruits and stuff. So without further ado, I'm going to put the camera down, put the knife in my hand, as scary as a thought as that is, and you will get narrated hands working through today's stuff. Alright, so enough looking at my face, and let's kind of look at my hands now, holding this this knife. This is a santoku knife. It's kind of like a Japanese style knife. It's not important. I really like it. It's very versatile. It's kind of like a diet chef knife, let's call it that. So the first thing that you want to do is the handle isn't here to actually hold, as silly of a thing as that sounds. But what you want to do is you want to grab right in front of the handle with your thumb and index finger, so that you are pinching the blade right on the spine, right in front of the handle, with your thumb and your index finger. On me, it's right in the first like division on where my index finger is. So you grab it like that, and you just kind of wrap the rest of your hand around the handle. So you do kind of use the handle, but it's not for your entire hand and all your fingers. It's really just for mainly your palm and your other fingers and stuff. So when you do it like this, when you hold the knife properly, what it's giving you is a lot of control, because now I am completely in control of my knife, and it's really, I've got a really good grip on it, and it's not going anywhere. When you hold it back here, it's a little bit easier to kind of move around, and you certainly don't want to hold it all the way up here. A lot of people cut with their index finger out. I don't like this. I feel like your finger can slide off, and you don't have a lot of control. But when you use your 2 strongest fingers and you hold your knife like this, you have ultimate control, very good stability, and you're ready to go with whatever it is you got to do. So what I have here is a Vidalia onion on my bamboo cutting board. Maybe we'll get into cutting boards a little bit later. Certainly on the blog. I left it whole. I peeled it, got rid of all the skin. If you didn't know, skin, not so edible. On the one end is the root. Hope you can see that. And on the other end is where the top was. The root end, when I peeled it, I cut off just enough of the root end to kind of get the skin off and like the nasty root portion of it. That way, when we go into actually cutting it for the dice, it all just kind of stays together. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut right down the middle of this. So I have 2 mostly equal halves. So just straight down with my knife. It doesn't matter if the onion is facing one way or another. You just want to go right down the middle of it. So I have 2 now onion halves ready to go. I would recommend, when you're going to cut an onion in half, always do it after after you peel it. You don't want to do it before you peel it, because then you'll just be driving all sorts of dirt and crap into the actual onion itself. And I didn't actually do a very good job of peeling this one, but I'm going to use this bad boy for the dice. We're going to do that one first, So it's a little bit more complicated. So what I have is I have this onion half here. The root end that I kept intact is facing away from me, and in fact for both of these cuts the root end is going to be facing away. So what I want to do is the purpose of the dice is to make small pieces of onion relatively the same size and shape so that they cook evenly. That's the ultimate goal of all these knife cuts, is even cooking throughout everything. So you can do a dice medium, small, large, super fine, but I'm going to do kind of a medium one today since that's kind of middle of the road. So what you want to do first is align your, get your onion on your board, make sure it's stable enough for you, and we're going to make cuts vertically through the onion across. Now when you go through, get right in there, don't be afraid. You want to cut all the way through down all of the leaves, and you want to make the spacing between each one as even as possible. What you do not want to do is when you go down through here, you want to go as far back as possible into the onion without cutting into the root, because we want that root is holding everything together. So we want everything to stay together as much as we can before we cut into it. So I've got 3 cuts there. I'm going to keep going down as far as I can into the onion, cutting all the way through without getting through the root. So that's 4. I'll do another one. That's 5. Another one. And as you get towards the ends of the onion, it's not such a big deal about the root, because you're not cutting that, you're not cutting into the root. So once I get the cuts across the onion, what we want to do, because we can go right now and start chopping through this, and it'll be okay, but they'll still be a little clunky. So what we want to do is turn the onion a little bit. So now the root end is facing to my left, and we're going to make one horizontal cut right down the middle of the onion, but again avoiding the root as much as possible. So kind of like in one smooth stroke, and I'm actually going to hold back onto the handle. I know I said not to, but for this it'll be a little bit easier, especially to show you guys. So I'm going to kind of line up right in the middle with the heel of my blade right in the onion. Put your hand on top, thumb way out of the way. I've cut myself way too many times to count, just simply because I wasn't paying attention, or my thumb was down here and I wasn't thinking, or I was too fast. Save yourself the hassle, save yourself the band-aid. So what we're going to do is we're going to just pull back on the blade and just keep pulling, and there. So you're going to have a little bit of mess. We got some onion pieces that fell out. That's okay. We'll just kind of save those, put those off to the side. We'll cut them up separately. So now what we've got is, like, I don't know, I think I put 7 vertical and we have 1 horizontal. So now that the onion is exactly how we need it to go, I'm going to hold the knife properly again. And we're now just going to go ahead and chop through, and beautiful pieces of onion are going to fall off. If you like onions, they'll be beautiful. If you don't, maybe they won't be so beautiful. But we're going to do that, and you want these cuts to be as even as the vertical cuts that you made, although that's not terribly important, especially as you first get into this, because it can be a little difficult. Took me a very long time to get this right. And then also, when you're cutting through, you want to make sure you are putting pressure on the knife down and forward. The knife works best when it's doing 2 directions at once. So my first cut, I'm going to line up my knife, line up my onion, and I'm going to just chop right through. So as you can see, I've got all this beautiful onion just falling right out. And I'm going to do it again. So I go right through. So I'm going to chop through again. And sometimes with onions, since it's an agricultural product, you'll get things that, like over here, my knife isn't completely going through. That's okay. You can just kind of either pull those off, treat them separately, and just kind of even it up so that all your pieces over here are about the same size. So you'll get to the point eventually where you've done your dice as much as you can. So now you're left with the root, which I told you to avoid cutting into, and even still, so then what you want to do, or what you can do, if you still want to use this onion, is just kind of chop through a little bit. Probably move this so you can see a little bit better. Just chop through what's around the core, the root there, which is all that's left. Place that off to the side. You can throw it out or eat it if you're insane. And then what you have left over here is beautiful, what I would call a good medium dice of an onion. And I'm actually going to use this for a sauce tonight for the pork chops that I'm going to be cooking, that I'll probably be writing about in my blog. Okay, so I went ahead and grabbed a plate over from my pantry. I'm going to just transport all of these onions kind of quickly. Get all this over here. It's beautiful. Get the root over there. I'll throw that out later. Alright, so now that's all that's on my board. That's left is this other onion half. So we're going to do a julienne, which I'm going to go ahead and call it the cut cousin of the dice. It's kind of similar, but also kind of different. Since we're just starting out with this, and we're not trying to get crazy or fancy or anything like that, I'm going to take one little shortcut, and it's totally cool if you do that too, especially as you start with this. But again, I have the root end away from me, just like with the dice, because they're cousins. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take off just one little wedge off on the side. So I have one flat, straight edge right there. That will make everything a lot easier for you. So I'm going to put that over on the side. Maybe I'll dice that up and put that with my other onions so I'm not wasting anything. So now, all that you want to do, and actually what I'm going to do here is take off just a little bit more of the root. Actually take the root completely out. You do not need that. Actually a little bit more. You do not need the root in this case. In fact, it'll probably just make your life a little bit more. So I don't know how this editing is going to work out so much, but I took out a little bit more of the root, since having it in will make life a little bit more difficult. So now what I'm left with is this sort of naked onion type deal going on here. So now with what was the root end before, still facing away from me, I'm going to start where I made my first cut to flatten out this edge, and I'm just going to make thin slices. This is coincidentally against the grain of the onion, and so it's a pretty thin cut. You could do a thicker cut for this, but then it wouldn't technically be a julienne, it would be something else. So first thing I'm going to do is line it up. Sometimes it can be kind of hard to see, especially with this crappy lighting I have in here, but also because it's a white vegetable. So just make one easy slice right through. And then the goal of this is to make your cuts as even to the one before it as possible. So what you're left with is a lot of beautiful, evenly cut julienne of onion. So then when you cook them, whether you are going to, grill them up, saute them up in some butter, put them on a burger, maybe caramelize them for French onion soup, or anything that you would like to do, they will cook evenly and beautifully. Now what I will say is once you get to the end, kind of like the opposite end of where we initially cut off, because we didn't want to deal with it, I would go ahead and say cut your loss. That's a pun. But I would just say go ahead and just put that off to the side, consider it done, and what you're left with here are just beautiful slices of onion that you can then pick apart, because they're still kind of formed together from when they were in the full shape. And you've got all this beautiful onion that is going to cook beautifully and evenly and be delicious.